Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for having me, and hello to colleagues and others joining online. So I'm Rebecca Wells. I'm a teaching fellow at the Centre for Food Policy here at City, along with my job share partner Annabelle, who I think is joining us or has joined us from wherever she is in the country, but joining us online. So I wanted to talk a little bit about IFSTAL, which is the programme that I work on. It's called the Innovative Food Systems Teaching and Learning, SNAPPY acronym, programme that I work on as part of the Centre for Food Policy. The innovative part is we do lots and lots of live streaming in different senses and in different ways, and I want to talk about 4 of the different examples of how we've done live streaming and how we've kind of connected with our various students. So I'm going to talk about 4 models. So there's, you can see on the screen there, one of them webinars, the top right-hand corner, using Adobe Connect, and the bottom left-hand corner is it's obviously very familiar. I'm like talking about live streaming. Within live streaming, it's the same screen, Adobe Connect, but there's a live lecture that we did that we live streamed to other lecture theatres in other parts of the country. I'll talk about some of the problems and the issues around that. Top left-hand corner is YouTube, so we live streamed the lecture using YouTube, so we can talk about some of the differences and the similarities between those different, using the different technologies. And the bottom right-hand corner, we used WebEx. We did a kind of, it was very Eurovision, we did a kind of live streaming between institutions, so we all waved to each other. So this is us waving in London in the bottom right-hand corner here, to other students in Warwick, in Oxford and in Reading. And I'm going to play you a little bit of that if I have time. So just very quickly, what I'm going to talk about, background to the IFSTAL project. I'm aware we're kind of running out of time, so I'll whiz through 4 examples of live streaming projects, lectures, a little bit on the literature, conclusion, and any questions or discussions. So if anybody has any comments or suggestions, I'd be very grateful. It's really great to hear about other people's experiences and to learn as we're going along. So IFSTAL is a programme funded by HEFCE, 3 years, for us to do kind of innovative teaching methods between institutions. So I think there was a recognition from HEFCE that there's a lot of research projects that go on between institutions, but perhaps not so much educational projects that go on linking different institutions. This is a picture of one of our summer schools from the very first year, and the project is led by Oxford University, City as a partner, Reading, Warwick, and then three institutions in London, SOAS, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and the Royal Veterinary College. So we're working on food systems. The project aim is we want to create a community of food systems thinkers. So the idea is that it's interdisciplinary. We get vets working with food policy students, working with nutritionists, working with geographers, working with all kinds of different people. And we also work closely with sector workplace experts, and I was really interested in advanced talk about how we might actually do that using some of these technologies, which we haven't actually done. We've done that more face-to-face. So we work with NGOs, industry, government, who will come in and talk to the students. Trouble with the clicker here. So it's essentially blended learning. We do some face-to-face and some online. We have a dedicated VLE online learning space, which is Moodle, but which is accessed by all the students from all the different institutions. And we have chat rooms, live stream recorded lectures, face-to-face. We do workshops and away days, so the students get to meet each other, as well as a summer school at the end of the year symposium. We had a great symposium here at City at CAS just at the end of last month. So we have over 1,000 participants over the 3 years, so we keep the alumni going, keep the alumni on the VLE and coming to our events, even after they've left. So from 7 institutions, postgraduates, we've also introduced for undergraduates as well. And as I said, diverse disciplines. So the idea is we bring different perspectives together and different students together from different disciplines, from anthropology to zoology and everything in between. So here's a picture, you'll recognise that, the Northampton Suite, and away day. So that was 30 students getting together that applied from all different institutions, different disciplines, all chatting to each other face to face. This is our VLE, which is Moodle, but it looks very different because it's hosted at RVC, but accessible by all the different institutions where students can access online resources and courses. So we're trying to build this community online as well as the face-to-face community, because we recognise some of our students are distance learners, and they're remote from each other. So they have face-to-face activities that they might have in Oxford, for example, or here at City, or between the London institutions, but we want to get them to interact with each other between the different institutions, and the online space seemed a really good way to do that. So we developed ways of live streaming some of our live events between different institutions, and this is, as I said before, using Adobe Connect. That's my colleague Raquel, in one of the rooms, I think down in one of the new ELG learning rooms, giving a lecture to an audience of students in London, but also online, and to lecture theatres around, plus some other participants logging in from elsewhere with a chat room. So I just wanted to talk a bit about, that's my first example, the Adobe Connect lecture. So the benefits, as I see it, was there are multiple participants, so we can get participants from different institutions, and they have their own event there. So they're watching the lecture with a group of other students. The slides are really good quality. There's a chat facility, so there's questions coming in at the same time and discussion going on, as you've seen here. So the students can talk to each other, answer each other's questions, as we've been talking about earlier. The challenges, I think it's very different talking in a room to a room full of people than it is to talking in a webinar situation where you're talking online to people. So as you can see, I'm not really paying attention to the fact that I'm moving behind the monitor here and nobody can see me. In the live lecture situation, Raquel there was doing really well, but I took over at some point and I was waving my arms down, moving around. I was being away from the and watching the video back. It wasn't quite so good. It was difficult to manage the questions. There were lots of questions and comments coming in. It was difficult for one person to manage that as well as delivering a lecture. So it's really useful to have somebody managing the chat stream, or an extra person to manage the chat stream as you go along, so that perhaps you can answer any questions that students might have. That's not always possible in terms of what you can do resource-wise, having extra people along. We also had some issues with the webcam quality. So other ways we've done it, and the second or third, one of the other examples that I've got here is we had a much better. So this is the WebEx, this is the video that I was going to play, so that hasn't quite come on my slide. So we had a WebEx, we use WebEx because Oxford, this is one of the benefits of doing cross-institutional program, that WebEx is a kind of similar to Adobe Connect. It's hosted by Oxford, so we were able to use their login to that. I don't know if it's possible to put the video. Just going to get the video going now. So we had a live link up with the Eurovision styling. So there was London and Oxford and Warwick. So this is the beginning. Can I just make it? So this is John Ingram in Oxford, who's sort of saying hello from Oxford. That's us in London. I'm just going to go to this. It's about here. So this is my colleague in Warwick.
Coordinator at Warwick. I'm also probably the person you're going to contact if you have any problems with the portal. I'll normally be the one that tries to help you out on that. My background's slightly, and I'll just introduce everyone at Warwick. So if you're away. So we'll now hand over to London.
Hello, can you hear us okay? Okay, so hello from the Royal Veterinary College, where we're very lucky to have all of our London events today. So our London event today, so we've got City and the Alcera group here. So that's students from SOA, from the Royal Veterinary College, and from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, as well as from City University of London. So we're all together in a big group. So everybody say, wave and say hello. Hello from London. I'm Rebecca Wells. I'm one of the education coordinators at City University of London. I job share with Annabelle, who will introduce herself in a second. Our lead academic is Professor
setup. So it was quite different. Some of the other setups where you'll see in Oxford, they had their webcam without seeing the students, so it was just seeing them, and I think there's real value in that. Now, how do I go back to my slides? Oh, thank you. The positive things about that was this kind of interaction between groups of students that you can see and wave to each other, and you can see who they are. Live link up with multiple groups. Just go back one, sorry. I'm sure I can do that. Thank you. And the possibility of this sort of chat facility and slide share. The challenges was the webcam positioning. Should we be able to see all the students? Other individual participants who may have logged into that call or that chat may have felt left out of the fact that there were groups of students all interacting together, and giving everybody an equal voice. So how much time do you give people? Is there enough? Would there be space for you to do a kind of lecture in that style? I mean, we basically used it as a kind of introduction to IFSTAL. Here are your colleagues who you're going to meet, or you can meet online to get some kind of face-to-face interaction. So the public lecture, the kind of YouTube example, which we did at SOAS, so this was much more of a kind of HD, high definition, that we had professional cameras within a kind of lecture, a theatre setting, so it had a mixing desk, and we could use, I think they had 3 different cameras, so we had a lecture where we had this view that you get here of the stage, kind of from the long view. They could also do a live feed directly from the slides, so they cut between the slides, kind of close to head and shoulders of the lecturer using a different camera, and then another camera to get a kind of far away so you could also see the audience. So that was a really good quality video of the speaker, and much better quality than we found with Adobe Connect, but it's a much more expensive way of doing it. You have to have the right venue to be able to do that. Kind of a big stage, but also allowed chat, so we could get questions again in a kind of chat facility on YouTube. But I think we really relied on the fact that we had this facility of the Brunei Gallery Lecture Theatre, which is designed for professional theatrical productions. So yeah, the use of the mixing desk was really good. That was challenging for the AV team. Even the AV team there, who are professionals and very used to using that space, had never done live streaming on YouTube before to multiple different sites. And we had people Skyping in, not Skyping in, but joining us, tuning in from Belgium and from other places. So they were quite challenged by that, relieved when it was all over. And the in-room questions, the difficulty was that the questions from the audience in the room were privileged over the questions from those people that were not in the room. So and I think that's kind of natural, because you take the questions from people that are in the room, and there were some questions beforehand about how do you make sure that those questions and the people that are online that are joining, how do you make sure that they get equal access in those sorts of situations? So the last example, which I think in some ways is the most successful, because I think it was the most level playing field in a way, was a webinar that we used the studio upstairs, the lead studio to do, and we had Annabelle and myself, or actually another colleague and myself, in the little cupboard that's by the studio, managing the chat space. And we had a couple of senior academics, one who was visiting from Australia, having a kind of discussion as part of the webinar. Comparatively easy and inexpensive to set up compared to using a huge great theatre. Multiple participants, possibly a challenge ruling out multiple webcams, so I don't know how you'd get face-to-face interaction, or even if you need it, I guess you don't need it. And difficult to capture. The 2 people, you can see they're slightly squished in the frame because of Adobe Connect. I'm sure there are ways you can deal with that. You could get the slides smaller and the screen bigger if you had 2 or 3 people, if you wanted to do some kind of panel discussion. But it was harder for us they had to kind of sit quite close together in order to present or to capture any kind of conversation. And I'm not sure whether the uptake was lower than the live event. So the big lecture, big kind of style lecture with a big name presenter, we have more participants than we had in these sessions. So it may be that we didn't advertise them as much, or it felt lower key. It felt much more kind of cozy and much more of a safe space than that kind of live lecture situation. So just to kind of ground it in lessons from the literature, and just as I'm coming to an end, I think we're over time, so I don't know if anybody, Dom, do you want me just to take some questions, or I've got a couple more slides?
If we could just go to questions.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That would be great. If you could put your hands together, please, for the Rebecca's presentation, and we'll then go for some questions as well.
Thank you.
So, do we need to readjust anything? We're all good here. Okay, so that's okay. Thank you very much. We're overrunning anyway. We'll catch up on email. Okay, so thanks those of you who have managed to stick around for a little bit longer. We've got about another 5 minutes that we can stay in the room as well. Anyway, I've got the room booked till 3. And those of you who are still online, Steve Rowett in UCL has commented that he loves the ambition of this project. I think we can probably all admire the ambition that you've brought to this, Rebecca. But let's go to those of you who are still in the room and see if we have any questions here. I've got one here from Martin. An observation?
Well, actually, observation apart from echoing Steve and loving the ambition, but pointing your last but one slide about what you really focus blended learning. I've been saying it's exactly what I've been saying for ages, and any support. The idea is not just about channels, it's also about mixing formal and informal, mixing different styles. I think mixing channels happens everywhere. I think mixing different, I'm mixing yellow vision and something a little bit less sort of more low tech, I think is actually fascinating. So thank you.
Any other questions? Should we take one more? James, would you have a final question, perhaps? I'll ask a final question here. So, what on earth got you started in this?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting to think around. So some of the things that if I go back one slide, so that this whole idea around some of the work that Julie, who was here earlier, has done, looking at technology enhanced learning, and that it's been around for so long, but actually is it become embedded within our institutions, and are people using it as a matter of course, or do people just revert to what they always do, and the kind of the same old, which, there's nothing wrong with the same old. It's been working brilliantly for hundreds of years, right? So why should we change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think, but there are these technologies and there are these things that we can do, and IFSTAL has been just a fantastic opportunity for us to really push the boat out and push at some of those boundaries. So I think that's one of the reasons why we've tried lots of different things to see if it works. I think particularly here, I mean, I can only speak for City, but I think the facilities here are fantastic, and it was great to share the other facilities. So that's another thing. We've got these 5 institutions. We can share other facilities and think about, well, what would happen if we use WebEx because somebody else has got WebEx. We don't have to pay for it. And what would happen if we use YouTube, and what would happen if we? So we've got that kind of shared learning between institutions, and I think that's been great. But also LEAD have been amazing just in terms of supporting us. I'm not just saying that because you invited me. They have been really wonderful in supporting. I go to Faria or I'll go to Olivia, and I'll be saying, right, you want to do this? And they're like, you want to do what? I've been doing like gaming workshops, trying to Skype people in on a gaming workshop using Adobe Connect, somebody from Brussels and a whole group of people here. And I'm like, what? So some of it works, some of it doesn't work. And as we were saying earlier, there's always a kind of extra layer of, is the technology going to work? Yeah, there's slight added stress of that, but I think we thrive on that in a way. And we're there to experiment, so there's less fear of failure, I think, because you're trying it out.
So. Does anybody have a final question for Rebecca? We let the next class in.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much.
One final point, I suppose, is do you have any sense of what's next?
Hopefully funding to continue, because the 3 years is up the end of this year, so we're looking to get more funding to try and keep it going. So yeah. Good luck with that, exactly. Thank you very
So
much.
once again, thanks very much to Rebecca.
Thank you.
To Stephen, I don't know whether he's still with us online or not, but one for Stephen Troxell. And Gordon Van is still at the back. And those of you who joined us online, Annabelle and Stephen's still here. That's good. Probably just about hear me. I was a bit vague there. So Stephen UCL, you got a thumbs up there as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Annabelle, are you coming in from City or from somewhere else? I'm not sure, but thank you very much for joining us. And I hope this has been interesting or useful. I hope you've picked up ideas, tips, a sense of some of the challenges that you can try and overcome when you're pushing these particular boundaries, as we're saying. And I hope, as is the case with these things, it usually takes ages to get around to it, but I hope to write a blog post about the event so we can summarise some of the issues that have been raised today as well. Thank you very much, Steve. And yes, there will be a big queue for people wanting to use the catch box. We bought it for a van.
I say thanks to the dream team in front of me, Dom and James, working behind the scenes. Just really big thanks for everyone. James been working behind the scenes, and I saw some of the work which went into preparing it. Not by any means all. So I'm sure that all that comment about there being a huge amount behind the scenes is absolutely true of this.
Thank you.